Rick asked me, I kind of covered a lot of territory yesterday, as did everybody, obviously. And Rick asked me if I could get a little more specific about how to do some of the things we're talking about. So again, a lot of the stuff that I talk about changes day by day, and I turned all this stuff in about 6 weeks ago, and things have changed already. So I'm going to do a little ad-libbing as I go, and kind of let you guys know what's working the best. One of the things that's not in the presentation, and Stuart touched about it on a little bit, was on video, and yesterday I talked about some videos too. But one of the components of video that I didn't pull in was how Zillow is handling videos. Now, I know Zillow is that big company that we all hate, and their numbers aren't necessarily accurate. And there are a couple of things you can use with that, by the way, as far as when you go on listing appointments, and people say Zillow says my house is worth this. Zillow is a public company. So you have the option to go online on their website, and you can actually download their whatever it is, SEC regulations or filings or whatever. And in there, it talks about how accurate they are, and it breaks it down by city. And I know in Portland, Oregon, for instance, they're between 10 and 20% not accurate. So I actually use that in my listing presentations. And one of the other things that's kind of interesting is Spencer Raskoff, who's the CEO of Zillow, which is based in Seattle, just sold his house for $1.2 million, and Zillow said it was worth $1.7 million. So I love to use that one. But the reality is, like I said yesterday, we kind of gave up all of our rights and let all these companies have our listings that we go out and list. And one of the top places people go to is Zillow, and it's just the way it is, and we've got to live with it. So how can we really use Zillow to our advantage? Who in here is a premier agent with Zillow? Okay, it's about 20% of you. If you're a premier agent with Zillow, you can go in and actually monitor all the stats on your listing. And it's incredibly useful when it goes to showing sellers how their house is being marketed and what sort of results you're getting. And I'll circle back on that in a second. But one of the things that happens is once a listing goes on Zillow, it immediately goes starting to the top of the list. And as a premier agent, you can look in and see how your house compares to 10 similar houses around it. And so usually it'll be the first, number 1 or 2 or 3 because it's a brand new listing. And after about a week, it'll kind of drop off a little bit. Now you're down to like number 7 or 8 or even off the top 10. One of the things you can do as a premier agent for free is go back in and add a video. And it's very easy to do. We talked yesterday about using the Osmo Mobile. The reality is for the Zillow videos, there's no audio or anything. It's just you have 2 minutes to do this video. Whether it's an 800 square foot condo or a 5,000 square foot house, you have 2 minutes. So what you can do, especially if you have an iPhone 7 Plus, which has a stabilizer, the big one, is just kind of hold your phone, start walking up, and then you hit stop, and it says, do you want to discard or keep that? And it shows how many seconds you used. So let's say you used 8 seconds. You hit keep, and then walk in the front door and start going again. Click on start again and do the main floor and hit stop. You really can get big houses in 2 minutes. It's not ideal, but it does its job. But what will happen is you post that onto Zillow. It actually does it automatically right within the app on the phone. And then you'll notice the next day you're right up there at number 1 again. So I'd strongly encourage you guys to use that. One of the other things about Zillow that I use a lot in my presentations is people, especially now the market's slowing down a little bit in Oregon. At one point, our average selling time was 7 days in Portland for many, many months. And now it's kind of slowed down to about a month and a half, which is still pretty fast. But people are like, why didn't it sell in 7 days? So one of the things that I use Zillow for, and I think they're the best at it, better than even our MLS, is they show you all of the stats. So for instance, you can go into Zillow and you can see that 19,732 times your house came up in a search. And then over on the left-hand side column, it'll say 326 people looked at your listing. So my pitch on that is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, look, I'm doing my job. My job is marketing the house. And you can see right here that just on Zillow, 19,742 times, somebody searched for a house where your house came up in that search. Now, it could have been all the houses in Portland. It could have been all the 4-bedroom houses in Portland, all the houses under 500,000. We don't know what those searches were. But the reality is, 312 times just on Zillow, somebody clicked on your listing and looked at it. And here's the same results from Trulia. And here's the same results from the MLS. And if you can do it, here's the same results from my website. Clearly, I'm doing my job by marketing your house, but it's not selling. And that's where you go into the usual thing of location, price, terms, and conditions. So just as a little extra thought on how to use that. So without further ado, I'm going to go into talking about a little further in depth on how to do some of the things I talked about. And then I want to get into a little bit about using some of the money that we're earning in this good market. But first, I wanted to say what I learned about real estate from my dog, Steffi, the standard schnauzer, who just recently passed away. And, there's several things. By watching that dog one day, I was thinking, what does a dog do? Well, be loyal to your clients, be loyal to yourself, make her clients feel like they're the only client you have. But when that dog went out in the backyard, she went ripping around the corner, smelling all of the fence. And what she's doing, she's checking her boundaries. She's checking her farm. She guards the gate. She protected the family. She marked her territory. She's friends with everybody. She barked when needed, and she doesn't bite. And she has someone else walking behind her, cleaning up all of her poop. We can learn a lot from dogs. So jumping right into it, your main site. You need your own website. Remember, if you're just in another system's website and you buy some of these cheap ones that are out there, you're a page and a chapter in a book. You're never going to be found. We all get calls from people, hey, I can put you on the first page of Google. Come on, this is Washington, D.C. There's millions of people here, and there's only 7 spots on the first page of Google. It's not going to happen. And the second question is, even if you are on the first page, if I'm moving, say, from Portland to Washington, D.C., and looking for homes, and we're going to move, let's say, next June when the kids are out of school or something like that, I don't want to talk to you anyway because you're a realtor and you're going to bug the heck out of me. But I would be attracted to a stealth site, and that's why those stealth sites, or squeeze pages, as Rand calls them, are so popular. So your main site, you'd want your own site. Don't be a page in a chapter in a book. One of the questions I asked, actually, when I did another event, was how many people actually have their domain name, like mine is roblevy.com, and my email is rob@roblevy.com. And I did a little contest, and I said, how many people in the room have their domain as whatever your name is.com, at least your own domain, and your email address is you@your-domain, and had both of those on your business card, and everybody had to hand in their business cards? There was 16 people in a room of 200 people. I see quite a few hands up and heads nodding now, so a lot of you are, but it's amazing. I was in a situation where the company that I was working with folded, and they owned the phone numbers and the email and everything else, and I was in the good position of having my own information on my cards, and it really helped. So again, everybody promises you can be on page 1, and out-of-town buyers don't necessarily want to look for you. So where to get your main site? There's all sorts of great ones out there. Homes.com has some tremendous sites. Agent Image, Top Producer, which is a great product, we can talk a little bit about it later, has some good ones. GoDaddy makes some good real estate websites. RealPro Systems, the one that Galen and I use. Wix.com is a good one. They've got all sorts of real estate templates, and they're completely free. So that's a really good one to use. The important part, though, is having your website, you need to be able to have the IDX component so that people can search for homes under your name. Again, I can't emphasize that enough. The key being that I could go to any one of your websites, search for all the houses in whatever city you're in, and they're all going to have your name at the bottom. That's the important part, to do the stuff that I'm talking about. So just to re-clarify, what is a stealth site? Galen likes to say they fly under the radar and they attract buyers that you otherwise would not get. Again, a sample of that, I want to move to Washington, D.C. I don't want to do it till the end of the year. I'm not going to go to your website. But I would be attracted to a site that says maybe whatever city I'm looking at, say Arlington, Arlington homes by email, Arlington homes only, things like that. That's kind of the niche market that Stuart was talking about. So there's a couple of bad things about stealth sites. They're lousy at attracting buyers. Why is that? Because my page, I've got over 700 neighborhood pages on roblevy.com. My portlandmls.net site, it's one page. So it's probably number 24,000 on Google or something. It would never, ever, ever be found. That's why you have to promote them, and that's why we talked about paying Google ad clicks and stuff like that to promote them. Stealth sites can be for buyers, sellers, investors, whatever. Stuart talked about his niche marketing. His is a great example. 1 Acre Plus Homes can be its own stealth site. Yesterday I showed you an example of an investor website. It could be for floating home sites. It could be for condos. Condos in arlingtonvirginia.com could be a great example. All sorts of choices that you can do. And again, make sure when you buy a website that it's a website where you can add all those multiple pages for free by yourself without having to pay them to do it. And there's lots of them out there that'll do that. So that's kind of the pitch on that. Again, my buyer stealth site is portlandmls.net. What mine does that's kind of cool is that when somebody fills out the form and they're looking for 3-bedroom homes in Beaverton under $500,000, for instance, it automatically puts them into a buyer campaign like Galen talked about, where it kicks off the emails, and he also is kicking off texts. It sends my newsletter every 2 weeks, and of course, it starts to send them all the homes in Beaverton under $500,000. The seller stealth site. I have not had as good luck getting CMAs from a seller stealth site as buyers, and I've tried everything. It just doesn't work the same way. I have had pretty decent luck on Facebook doing it by showing you the site that I showed yesterday where they just type in the address and it automatically gives them a CMA. And if I was online, I could have showed that to you. What it does is it'll pull up all of the comps, and then about, I don't know, 5 seconds later, it kind of grays out so they can kind of sort of see the comps, and then it asks them for their information. But it does it in a clever way. It says, is this your correct square footage and information on your house? So it might pop up and say the house, I don't know, is 2,450 square feet, versus really somebody did an add-on and it didn't show up in the tax records or something that's 3,000 square feet. So they see it as an opportunity to correct the information rather than just giving their name. And once they fill that out, then they start to get the seller emails and stuff like that, and an automated CMA, and that's this site right here. And if you have any questions on it, I talked yesterday about Top Producer Market Snapshot, and that's what this page is. And that is a phenomenal product. Any users of that in here? Just like 3, 4. So Top Producer Market Snapshot, you do not need to buy Top Producer to get Top Producer Market Snapshot, but it is literally an automated CMA. You type in the information on the house, the seller's name, address, city, state, zip, email address, and stuff, and it will send out a CMA every 2 months. 2 months, 2 weeks. That's a little better. Yeah. Here's the cool part about it. It's not really a CMA. So if I'm just typing in the address of the house and so on, and don't get too specific, it's going to send all the houses around them. So the pitch back to them is, look, I've set you up for this program, but what this is actually doing is showing you all of the houses around you that are selling. I don't know how this house is going to compare with your house. When would be a good time for me to come out and take a look at it so we can figure it out together? So it's really a great pitch for getting in the door and doing a CMA. So how do you promote these sites? Because these are stealth sites or squeeze pages, again, with absolutely zero SEO. So you have a couple of choices. One is Google AdWords, and you can do this yourself. There's companies that will do it for you, and they'll charge 35% in most cases of the actual cost. So if Google charges $100, they're going to take $35, and you'll get $65 worth of Googles. But you can do it yourself, or you can get that kid from high school that we just talked about to do it for free or close to free. And simply just fill out the form and put in the information. The key being, just like Stuart said, is doing kind of the niche marketing or tailoring it to a local, what's called a long tail search. So for instance, if I wanted to buy the Google AdWords for Washington, D.C. homes for sale, it would cost a fortune. But I think we're in Tyson's Corner, is that right? So if I did one for condos in Tyson's Corner, I bet you nobody, or it'd be really, really cheap to do that. So for instance, in mine, I found they've cost, when I first started it was 14 cents, and then it went up to $72. It's got real expensive for Portland homes for sale. But when I really break it down and do some of the smaller neighborhoods that people wouldn't necessarily type in unless they're looking in that neighborhood, it's dropped way back down. And I just looked this morning, and I've had 16 new leads since Saturday, and of those 16 leads, my average is $14. So it really does work, and you really can do it by yourself. And again, just some examples, I'm not going to spend time on it, but some of the ads that I've done in Facebook using the IDX search. And again, I'm going to show you how to do that. So, how do you get an IDX link? And let me get a little bottle of water here. So, the first thing you need to do is go to your website and pretend you're a buyer. So go to your own website and pretend you're a buyer and search the MLS without logging in, like don't create an account. So if you are logged in, make sure you log out first. Search the MLS on your site for a specific search, such as one-level homes under $400,000 in Beaverton or whatever city you live in. That whatever search it is that you're doing that you're creating a page for. Save that link. So just copy and save that link. Now, one of the problems with that, so for instance, here's how I do it on my website. I'd go in and do the search, and there's the list of all the houses starting at the bottom. One of the problems with that is you get this really long line. So there's another product out there which is free called Google Shortener, and just type it in. And you can take this massively long web address, and it'll convert it down. In this case, I can't quite see from here, but it looks like about 15 characters. And that would be what you'd post in your ad on Facebook. So just to clarify, and I'm picking on condos in McLean or Tyson's Corner because I went on a nice walk around a whole bunch of condos this morning. If you did condos for sale in McLean, Virginia, and you targeted that in Facebook to everybody that lived in McLean, Virginia, or even people that lived in McLean, Virginia that were in a certain price bracket, income bracket, had said they want to buy a house or sell a house or whatever, or a condo, you could do all of that, and then just simply post that link in there. And it's just that easy. So for instance, the link for the picture on the above right is actually at the bottom. That's way too long to dump into a Facebook ad. But using Google URL shortener, which is free, they'll just create that little tiny little link, and that would be what I would post. So I don't always do it that way. Sometimes they're shorter. So for instance, this one here on the screen, that actually is a shorter one for some reason. I'm not quite sure why, but it says idxroblevy.com, Southwest Portland Real Estate, and that was a view one that I did, maybe because it was a simple search. So before I go farther, I could take one or two questions, but does everybody understand this part of it? That that's what you need to do. Go there and pretend that you're looking on your own site. Sir?
There's so much coming at us, so I'm not sure that I got this quite right, but there was a site, or I don't know if that was on Facebook or where it was, but when you got to the page, it knew who you were or where your home was?
That's what Rand was talking about. So the question was going to a site where once you got to that page, it knew who you were. The product Rand was talking about, Client Creator, I don't know how they do it, but they've got some sort of an ability that when you fill out the form, it actually automatically knows your address. It must be using the IP address of your router in your house or something like that, and it knows where you're located. So from a CMA standpoint, it's actually filling that in. Was that your question?
That was. I have another thought.
Okay. One more and I'll roll on.
As far as IDX, if you build a site, how can you link it? Where do you get your IDX? I mean, I understood when you just got that, what you just did there, but...
Okay, his question, and that's a very good one because I blew right past it. Where do you get your IDX site? The company you work for in most cases are providing an IDX, and there's a whole bunch of providers out there. Boomtown does it, IDX Broker does it. You could actually just Google IDX websites, and there's setup fees that you'd be through your MLS and through your company, and your company would have to authorize it. But chances are, excuse me, if you work for a bigger local company, that they already have an IDX for you all set up. Okay, and if not, then you can certainly buy one. They're very inexpensive. I think I pay $38 a month for mine. It's just not that much money. So, yeah. So Facebook ads. So again, we're kind of the same story, right? Create a link to a specific long-tail search. So in this particular case, it was homes in Beaverton and Tigard that had a master on the main floor. That's called a long-tail search rather than just homes in Beaverton. And like Stuart said, you've got these little niche markets, and that list I said yesterday, you could do single-level homes, view homes, waterfront homes, urban condos, homes on an acre plus, or find out what's selling in your MLS, what's hot right now in your MLS, and do that. So how do we do this? So the first thing that we're going to do, there's two ways of doing this in Facebook, right? One is creating a post on your business site, and the other is creating an ad. In the past, all I've really done is put stuff on my Facebook business page and then boosted those, but now I'm actually not doing that. I'm creating an ad that's going to appear, and the reason why is because you can drill down more. So there's many more specifics you can drill for when you're doing that. So what I'm talking about is right here. So for instance, when you create an ad, you can click on the detailed targeting button, and then you can click on, for instance, the interests button, and one of the questions right under there is residential profiles, and one of the questions below that is length of residence and likely to move. So somebody told some survey that they're likely to move in the next 6 months, on one of those millions of questions that we always answer online, and that data went to Epsilon, and Epsilon sold it to Facebook. And so you could, for instance, search all the people in Tyson's Corner that have told somebody on the data that ended up in Epsilon servers that they're likely to move in the next 6 months. I mean, that's a good source to target your ad for. So now when that person that filled out that form goes onto Facebook that told somebody who told Epsilon who told Facebook that they're likely to move in the next 6 months, when they log onto Facebook, your ad's going to come right up in front of them. So other ideas of that. So about a quarter of a mile, just down the street from my office, is Nike's World Headquarters, and they've got somewhere around 20,000 employees in Oregon. They don't make any clothes there. That's all 8-year-olds overseas. But the reality is that's where the headquarters are. So I've done ads saying selling homes to Nike employees in Oregon for over 25 years. And then I target people that identify themselves as working for Nike and living in Oregon. So when that person logs on to Facebook, my ad is targeted to them. I'm spending a little more for the ad, but I know it's going to the right people. So that's kind of how that stuff's done. And then it shows you a little chart. So I did a sample here the other day. I was playing around and I looked in Seattle for people that said they worked at Microsoft, that lived in the city of Seattle, plus or minus 15 miles, and it was like 38,000 people, or 39,000 people. So I could actually target those people if I lived in Seattle, as a for instance. I guess the biggest employer here is probably the US government, but I'm not quite sure how you target that through there. So Google AdWords, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Again, you pay for terms such as Portland real estate, and try lesser known terms like Beaverton real estate, Tigard real estate, in your case, all these individual cities. Pick a good time to promote. Like I said yesterday, Fridays and Sundays for me are the very best. And it can be very expensive, but when you start to really tailor those, I think you'll find out it gets cheap. How to track the leads. So this is really the important part, right? You get all these leads, now what am I going to do with them? Well, you've got to stay in contact with them constantly. And there are automated programs that do it. You can use dedicated software, or you could use Excel, just track everybody in there. But remember, by definition, a stealth lead is a lead. It's better than a better than a contact, but not necessarily a prospect. I always like to think of the fact that you've got contacts, and then leads, and then prospects. So someone's just a contact, they become a lead, and when they're ready to buy or sell, they become a prospect. There's a chart I put in here too, actually, a page or so down. It can take months or years for a lead to become a prospect. We just recently sold a house where this is honest to God true story. They called and they said, "Hey Rob, it's John and Mary." Okay, who the heck is that? "Hi, how you guys doing?" "Yeah, hey, we just landed at Portland Airport and we're here to buy a house, and I just wanted to thank you so much for staying in touch with us for 2 years." It's like, I have no idea who they were. All I know is they filled out a form, they were getting the listings in Lake Oswego, kind of our ritzier neighborhood, and they bought a house for $983,000 cash the next day. And they'd moved from Florida. So the reality is, this stuff works. I was just kind of staying in touch with them as far as they were concerned. So you do need the drip emails, and you do need the IDX like we talked about to stay in touch with them. Videos help. So for instance, I've got a whole series of videos that go out. I think Galen talked about this too, where I sat down one day. As a matter of fact, I was on a flight to Mexico, and I was kind of bored, and I was writing down all the things I could do a video of. And, you know, like making a little movie of the sales contractor, talking about the wood stove laws, the earthquake regulations, insurance. I thought, what about insurance? Maybe I could interview my insurance broker and talk about different types of insurance. Well, he talked about earthquake insurance, flood insurance, replacement cost insurance. So I've got like 6 videos from him. Then I went to my escrow officer. We do an escrow and title as the same thing in Oregon. We don't use lawyers. And she did a whole series of videos for me. And then I went to my heating contractor, my buddy that owns Specialty Heating, Carrier dealer. And he did one on high efficiency air conditioners, automatic thermostats. I mean, you can come up with 1 million videos and just drip these to people, and I'm telling you, they like it. And the reason I know is my response rate from emails with videos in them is 2.5 times my response rate for regular emails. But Rob, you know, I don't have my makeup on, I don't have the right clothes on. You know what? Just do it. People watch them and it works. And they like to see you real anyway. So one of the products I talked about down below here is Top Producer. Any Top Producer users in here? So a few of you. So that's probably the best real estate software program out there. I've used it for 28 years. It's out of Vancouver, British Columbia, and they're a tremendous product, and all they do is build CRM systems for real estate agents. And they've thought of everything. And it tracks all of your buyers, all of your sellers, the people you need to call back. You can put in cascading events. So for instance, I've got to do this. If it falls on a Saturday, it'll switch it to a Friday. If it falls on a Sunday, it'll switch it to a Monday. Staying in touch with clients after the sale, all of that stuff's all built in. It's all done for you. It's not cheap. It's about $40 a month, but it's well worth it in my opinion. So work all your leads. Call right away. And so here's one of the things. So on the stealth sites, and this is really important, because we just talked about doing everything with email, but the best bet is to call them or text them. And if you're going to call or text, one of the best lines that we have luck with is, "Hey, you didn't indicate if you're looking for a condo or a house, and I wanted to make sure you get what you're asking for." Well, it didn't give them the option to choose a condo or a house. It just homes in Portland or whatever they're looking. You could use all sorts of other ones, you know. I see you filled out the form on our website, but you didn't mention if you wanted a 1 or 2 car garage. That's not on the site. So little things like that will get people to automatically engage with you, because remember, the fear of loss is always a better motivator than the anticipation of gain. They don't want to think they're missing out on houses. And then this little chart is just there. I just plugged that in from Harvard. I saw it came out, and it talks about lead response follow-up and how much it drops off if you don't follow up right away. We've found that if we can call somebody or text somebody within the first 5 to 7 minutes, we'll get an instant response. And it drops off dramatically after that. So remember, you're paying good money for these leads. You need to follow up on them right away. And then there's some simpler ways of doing it. For instance, we just talked about having them in automated drip systems going out through a website. Well, those come with the stationery, with me and my team at the top and the company logo and all that sort of stuff. Interspersing those with little personal emails just done right out of Outlook work just as well. So every week or so, we'll actually do that. So this one is, hey, it's Rob Levy, the realtor team in Portland you've been corresponding with. I just wanted to write you a quick note checking in, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to retype that every single time when I'm sending it to somebody, so I just save it as a signature. And for any Outlook users or whatever you use in Macs, you know, you can create this lovely little message and save it as a signature, just like you'd save it as the signature for your regular stationery. It just happens to be a completely pre-written letter. So pick up, you know, make up a half a dozen of those and save them, and then just send those out every now and then to some of your buyers. And it makes it look like, because by then they figured out they're getting these automated emails, it makes it look like you're sending a personal email to them. And again, promoting leads, I think we covered this a couple of slides back. Suspects become prospects, become leads, become customers. I've always looked at it the other way, actually. Contacts become leads, become prospects, become customers. But bottom line is, you're going to spend a lot more time with the blue people versus the other people in that list, right? Because they're the ones that are ready, willing, and able to buy now. And the goal is always to move the suspects to the prospects to the leads, and the leads to the customers. And that's the beauty of the automation of these systems. It does it for you. Where to get a stealth site? Client Creator that Rand talked about is a great one. RealPro Systems is what Galen and I use. It's also a good one. Boomtown, a wonderful product. It's expensive, but you can also co-market it with a lender if they'll pay for it too. Tiger Leads is a good one, which is now part of Realtor.com. And then buy a catchy domain name. So if names are available like Arlington Condos for sale or Arlington Condos by email, you know, there's all sorts of different ideas you can come up with. And if you get those through Google and you do it on a bulk account, you can get them for like about $7 a year. That's what I pay for mine. So Boomtown, Tiger Leads, Client Creator, RealPro Systems. So this one I think is funny. So this is the title I came up with. Moving on to a completely different subject, one that is very important to me. As a real estate agent who's been in the business 30 years, I've been through 3 recessions, and I've seen a lot of my friends get in and out of business. So for instance, in Portland, when I became a realtor in 1988, there were 800 of us. Then it went to 12,500. Then it dropped down to 4,000. Then it went back up to 8,000. Then it dropped again down to 6,000, back up to 9,000, and then to 12,000 in 2006. Then it went down to 3,800 after the crash, and now we're back at about 8,000 again. And I've seen many of my realtor friends go broke, and you guys know the turnover in this business is massive, and there's a lot of different reasons for it. But the reality is, the one thing that we can really have a huge advantage of over anybody else on the planet is that we know where the best real estate deals are, where the best rentals are, and we can go out and buy it and get ourselves a discount. So why, like I used to say, drug dealers use their own product, why don't we? So how many people in this room own at least one rental house? Congratulations, that's a huge amount. Guys, if you own one rental house and your own primary house, for average American upon retirement, you have 54 times the wealth of the average American when you retire. You know, rental houses are fantastic. Why aren't we all buying them? But Rob, they're really expensive in my area. Go to another area where they're not very expensive. It's amazing. There's parts of your own county or your own area. I just looked online last night where you can buy some very inexpensive houses that don't seem to be in a terrible area with huge crime that cash flow really well. So let's look at that. Why is that important? 2 reasons. Number one, the more we know about it, the more investment properties we sell. How many of you sell investment properties as a part of your real estate practice? That's actually every one of you. If I called you, any one of you right now, and said, hey, I'd like to buy a rental house in McLean, and you live in McLean, you're going to help me, right? You're selling rental houses. You're selling investment. You're specializing in investment properties, as Stuart would say. So moving on, invest in properties for yourself, and it gives you massive clout working with investors. Would I not have a whole lot more clout? And I own quite a few rental houses. But if somebody's coming to me and say, can you help me buy a rental house in Portland? And I say, absolutely. I've been doing it for quite some time. It's about XX percentage of my business, and I own several rental properties myself. You're going to feel more comfortable because I know what I'm talking about. So why work with investors? Well, first off, the cool part about investors is it's all about the money. There's no emotions involved. They're not worried about all the stuff that these buyers do that make you want to shoot yourself sometimes. All they're looking to do is figure out, does it pencil? Does it pencil? Does it pencil? The second thing is, can I do a 1031? Everybody in this room, if you're not familiar with it, should have a complete understanding of what a 1031 tax exchange is. And basically, very simplified, it's this. Owning a rental property is a business. It's no different than owning the donut store down the street or the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. The reality is, though, when you sell that rental property, it is an income property or a business, and it creates money, and you have something called a capital gains tax. And there's a 15 or 20% federal rate, and I know there's like 4 states right around here. I don't know what your individual states are, but I'm betting they're between 5 and 10% on each and all of them. And so you're spending as much as, say, 30% in taxes. You can do a 1031. So let's say I own a rental property in Portland, and I want to buy a rental property in McLean, Virginia, and this lady here is what's called an accommodator, which is a 1031 exchange specialist. A realtor, or me, I'm a realtor, can list my property in Portland and sell it, and all the funds sit with this lady here, and then I work with this gentleman over here and buy the property here, and she transfers the funds to him, or not to him, he's the realtor. If you do that, we never hear from him again. But but she transfers the funds to that closing, and I never touched it, so therefore there's no tax due. So a 1031 is something called a 1031 tax-deferred exchange. What I'm doing is kicking the can down the road, the theory being when I'm older and fully retired and don't have all of the regular income, my tax rate's going to be much lower. That's the thinking behind it. Now, it gets a whole lot better when you can do it out of your retirement account, and we're going to touch that because that's fantastic. One of the other big things about owning rental properties as a real estate agent, so let's say that I buy a house for $300,000 from any one of you right now, and I lose money on it. I lose $10,000 this year on it. Every one of our clients can't write it off. Guess what? We're a realtor. We can write that $10,000 off against our earned income. So if I made $100,000 last year, and I lost $10,000 on a rental property that I owned, that's a complete write-off against my taxes. I'm only paying taxes on $90,000. And there's no limit to that. And I've got 22 rentals. And there's all sorts of ways that you can do that and actually just write it all off. So incredibly important as a realtor. We've got some huge advantages. Matter of fact, they even joke about it and call it the realtor rule. And it's anybody that's in the industry that spends at least 500 hours a year in the industry, a year. So check into that one too. So again, make sure that you're up to speed on what 1031s are, and I've got a couple of links here that you can go to learn, and understand the intricacies of buying investment properties. One of the cool little products out there for anybody that has an iPad or iPhone, they do not have an Android product, but there's all sorts of other products out there, is Property Evaluator, the one at the bottom. And on the right, that shows what it does. So this is a fourplex I listed just a little bit ago. And I type in all the information on the house, or the fourplex, and it puts out all the money, what it makes, the internal rate of return, cool sorts of stuff like what it'd be worth in 10 years, 20 years, and so on, based on this appreciation and this much appreciation in rents, and replacing a roof costs this much more and things like that. It's all built in. There's several products, ProApod, Cash Flow Analyzer, Bigger Pockets, Summersoft, Property Evaluator. They're all about $40. You can really impress a client if you're going to list a duplex or even list a small little house that could be a good rental and pull this stuff together and show them how you can promote it as a rental. But again, doing this for yourself, it's even better. So the 1031, we just touched on that a little bit out of line. It's a great program. There are limits, as I'm sure that those of you that have done them are aware, Basically, from the sale of the property, if my Portland house closes today and I'm going to buy that condo we're talking about, I've got 45 days to identify another property. But let's talk about that 45 days. So let's say that 30 days in, I'm a real fussy buyer, I'm not coming out here for a while. 30 days in, you find a condo that I like, I write an offer, but somebody else beat me to it. 32 days down the road, we actually do get one. We lock it up, we order a home inspection. Home inspector's out 8 days, there's a holiday in there, it's 9 days. We get the home inspection done. We get the results the next day, there's a whole bunch of problems. Condo is probably a bad example because a lot of it's covered by the HOA, so let's make it a house. There's a bunch of problems. We go to the seller, we write a repair addendum, fix the leak behind the dishwasher, replace the roof, all these things. What's the seller going to say? I'm not going to do that without knowing how much it costs. We need to get some bids from contractors. You see where I'm going with this. We've gone over 45 days already. We're screwed because now you're going to pay tax on it. The rule is you have to identify the other properties, and there's some intricate rules where you can identify 3 within 45 days, and you have to close within 180 days. So you really need to bring yourself up to speed on that. And I put a website in there on that page called IPX 1031. Fidelity National Title, which also owns Chicago's Title, Ticor Title, Lawyers Title, and about 3 others, and I can't remember the names. So they have about a 65% share of the title work in the United States. They own a company called IPX Exchange. And if you go to ipx1031.com and click on resources, they've got some primers in there that are absolutely fantastic. They totally explain 1031 exchanges to you. So bring yourself up to speed on that. The second part of it, and I've done well with this, matter of fact, Galen and I do business together out of these, is a self-directed retirement account. I'm going to assume that pretty much everybody in this room has a regular retirement account with Prudential, Merrill Lynch, whatever the case may be, right? But how many of you have a self-directed IRA? Okay, there's about 6 of you. Guys, listen to these 6 people. This is the most amazing little money maker you can ever get as a realtor. Why? Because it allows you to self-direct where that money's going to go. So you can go out and buy yourself a rental property out of your retirement account. You can do a hard money loan out of your retirement account. You can buy a fixer-upper. You find a fixer-upper for $100,000 and you happen to have $150,000 in your retirement account. You buy the fixer-upper for $100,000 and you put $50,000 into it out of your retirement account and you sell it for $250,000. Now if we did that in real life, in less than 12 months, that's short-term capital gains of 38%, right? All goes into your retirement account tax-free. Or tax-free if it's a Roth, tax-deferred if it's a regular retirement account. Guys, these things are fantastic, and nobody really knows about it. There's nothing illegal about them. They've been around since the 70s, but most people don't know about it. There's one called the Entrust Group, and you can just Google it. There's the picture right there. And they've got all sorts of educational videos on that and so on and so forth. I own rentals in mine. Galen and I work together, and we actually do construction loans out of our IRAs together. And we combine it and do that. But it gets better. Let's say that you've got $250,000 in your account and you want to buy a house for $400,000. Well, there's 2 ways you could do that. The IRA of Rob Levy and Rob Levy, the person, can buy it together. And then when we go to sell it, let's say 60-40 percentage. The 60% goes back in to the account, but I'm going to pay tax on the 40% on the personal side. Or you can do, and I'm trying to think of the percentage. I think it's a 65 or 70%. It's either 30% or 35% down, non-recourse loan within the IRA with North American Savings Bank out of Denver. They're the biggest one in the country, it does them. And they will lend money within the IRA. So I can go ahead and put $200,000 down for my IRA on a house, but I'm buying a $300,000 house. That bank will lend me the additional $100,000. It's not the cheapest thing in the world. As of last week, it was 5.6% versus, say, 4% on a regular one. But guys, 5.6% is dirt cheap. It's free money, right. I can buy that house. I can keep it as a rental. All the rents are going to go in there. If I need to replace the kitchen sink, I have to write the check out of the IRA. There's very strict rules. No, I can't buy a condo in Florida and go and use it myself. It's self-dealing, or have my kids do it or anything else. But there's even ways around that. You know that you can borrow money from your IRA, right? We're all familiar that if we needed the cash today, we could take however much money you want out of your IRA for up to 60 days. We're all with me on that? You can actually take your house, your condo in Florida, out of your IRA for 60 days, go and spend 60 days in it, and put it back into the IRA 60 days later. You're not paying tax on it, you get to live on it for free. There's all sorts of cool things you can do. It's all on that website. There's a couple of books, several books written by them, and it's nothing weird about it. It's been around forever, and it's a great way for us realtors. So think about this. We can buy a house as a realtor and get a discount because we're not paying ourselves a commission, or find out about something that we know is a great deal. We can actually rent it out outside of an IRA, and if we get losses on it, we can write it off against our income. So in my case, all of my rentals are on 10 or 15-year mortgages. I'm losing my ass on all of them. That's the honest to God truth. But I write it off against my earned income. Or I can buy them out of my retirement account. So why do you need to be buying rentals? 10 reasons, the top 10 I came up with. Appreciation. They go up in value, right? High leverage. Great example. I want to go out and buy $100,000 worth of Boeing stock, or 10,000, let's say $10,000 worth of Boeing stock. Can I go to the bank and I say, hi, Mr. Wells and Mr. Fargo, I'd like to borrow $7,500 from you so I can go out and buy $10,000 worth of Boeing stock. Well, they're going to laugh at me. But I can go to Mr. Wells and Mr. Fargo and say, I want to buy a $100,000 house as an investment, and I'd only like to give you $25,000, and you're going to lend me the rest at a stupidly low interest rate. They'll do it. Yeah. So that's called leverage. So we can get high leverage on real estate. A high return on income. So basically, my $25,000 on this $100,000 house, and I'm getting all this rent coming back in, that's a high leverage, high return on income. So other things we can do. So I bought the house for $100,000, but my rents are going to go up over time, right? So if I'm smart about it, every $100 increase in rent, I'm going to apply $100 extra onto my mortgage payment. So now I'm paying my mortgages off way earlier than ever. And the tax benefits that we talked about as a real estate agent, there's great tax benefits. Now for somebody who's not a real estate agent, there's still great tax benefits of writing off the taxes and so on. It's a hedge against inflation. So houses go up and houses go down, and we all know that better than most of the people out there. But we also know that on the average, since the end of World War II, houses in the United States have gone up 4.7% per year, and that hasn't changed. And that'll probably continue to be the same. One of the benefits of a recession for those that own rentals is, sadly, a lot of people lost their houses. Those people needed to rent houses, and they wanted to sign 3- and 4-year leases because they can't buy a house for 3 or 4 years. So it's actually good for us that own rentals. Increasing rents. Rents go up, right? It creates retirement income for you down the road. So now we've got, let's say, 20 years down the road. If you paid it off in 20 years, you've got this free and clear house. You could move into the house and then do a reverse mortgage. So you've got millions of options of what you could do to provide for retirement income. And that's what the creative exit down the road was. So what I ask of you guys is the following, and this is really important. I touched on this briefly yesterday. Oh, I didn't talk about this. So when I had my little health issue a few years back, I decided I wanted to make life easier, and I cut my team down from a large team to, like I said yesterday, just me, a buyer's agent, my daughter-in-law, and a lady doing the paperwork. But one of the things that I did is I thought I need to target better neighborhoods because I'll make twice as much money. And I did. I doubled my average sales price. And it's just not that hard to do. So if you start focusing on that and bleed into some other neighborhoods to increase your price, it does work. Easier clients, easier deals, less work. But what I really wanted you to do is take your top 5 ideas that you've learned here, whittle it down to 3, set a calendar to implement the 3, and like I said, get your own website, your own domain, and so on. And last, I saw this the other day and thought I'd throw that in there, and I thought it's very true. But here is the most important slide of the entire 2-day conference. If you know somebody moving to Portland, Oregon, you know who to call. All right. Thank you.